literary journal Chicago Quarterly has announced its first South Asian American issue, showcasing a collection of stories, essays, and poetry written by members of the South Asian American community. Sadia Farki, one of the contributors to the issue, said that sharing the stories of immigrant communities is critically important to showing the full story of America. She says, quote, "We find a certain disconnection between the South Asian immigrant experience and the general American consciousness, which needs to change. That's why literary offerings like those in this issue can be instrumental in transforming opinions and informing audiences." I don't think we see that much South Asian American literature in school or a community. So what do you think about like this issue coming out and what it could mean for literature?
I feel like it's like a really good issue because I feel like you can bring like the diversity and the perspective that people like have like don't have about like the South Asian community. Like it's not just restricted to like, oh, like India or like what one country. It's like so many different cultures and so many different backgrounds. So I guess having like literature, like especially for like South Asian, would be like a really good like change, I guess, for like the non-South Asian community to like look back on.
Yeah, I think also we don't generally read that much literature. Like she said, kind of, we don't often, South Asian immigrants have a unique experience and that's not often reflected in American literature. So how many stories, I was wondering about, have you read about like South Asians and South Asian Americans?
Like I've read stuff about like in history and like the stuff that happened in the past and stuff through school and like textbooks and stuff, but not actual like literature focused on like South Asian themes. So I feel like that'd be like a really interesting topic to like have like brought up for like the South Asian community.
Did you read anything in school? Because I know when I was in school, we read this book called Nectar and a Sieve, which was about India. And it was just the worst book ever because it showed like the absolute worst of India that you can probably see, and it gets worse. Oh my God. Like it starts with child marriage and then it ends with like leprosy and death. So I mean, I think we definitely need more good, not even just South Asian American literature, but South Asian literature.
Right,
you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, I actually like read a book about like senior year of high school. It's called The Namesake.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I think I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it was made into a movie, in fact. It has Kal Penn in that movie, and it's like showed about like the culture and stuff from like his parents coming from India and like coming to America, like Boston, I think, Massachusetts, and like how he's living his life and how he has like an unusual name, like Gogol, and that's like named after like a Russian like author, like from the 1800s, so I feel like that and his identity as a South Asian, that really played out in the story of the book, so that was an interesting book.
So you thought it was a good example of South Asian American life?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Stuff like learning about the history, not just the history, just learning about like the culture, like in current times as well. I feel like that'd be really good for like the society just to get like that exposure. And I know like schools and universities do a good job having like cultural like organizations and stuff. So having like a South Asian like centered like theme, I guess, would be like a really good thing for the non-South Asian community. It would be like that exposure, and then people would get to know about the culture.
Topics that the Literary Journal has said that it's going to be covering are really broad and really interesting. So they said interracial marriage, police brutality in San Francisco, patriarchal violence. So what do you think about the fact that this Literary Journal is not even going to cover just South Asian American stories, but some things that are really controversial and problems in the South Asian American community?
I feel like it's really good that it's like brought up because not a lot of people like talk about it, and people have their like assumptions about like the South Asian community being like, oh, it's all about like family life or like it's just like arranged marriages and stuff, but really it's really beyond that. So I feel like addressing the taboo or controversial issues like interracial marriage or like patriarchal violence, so that's like really interesting to like learn more about, I guess. Yeah.
And some things that often, I mean, we don't hear about, like I don't really know what the context of police brutality is within San Francisco, but discussing that within the South Asian context I think is really interesting. I mean, we had the case with Suresh Bhai Patel, who was like beaten down by the cops in Alabama. So stuff like that I don't think is really talked that much about in the South Asian community.
Right.
Undoubtedly because it happens less if it does happen, but
right. And it's not really talked about like a lot.
Thank you for watching Brown Girl News. Please watch all of the other videos on our amazing YouTube channel and don't forget to check out the magazine online.